Hello students. In the last class we discussed about the famous poet Bhabhuti. Today we will discuss about Bharthari, a famous Sanskrit poet. Bharthari was the exponent of moral principles in human life. His theme varies from good behavior, etiquette to ex-morality. He was a Sanskrit poet, philosopher, and grammarian who lived in the later half of the 5th century. He was a shining star of Indian culture. His works present ideals for human beings and will be a source of inspiration to the people for all time to come. He was the king of Parma dynasty of Ujjain in Malwa in central India. He was also the elder brother of King Vikramaditya. He was generous and kind to his subjects. He was a great scholar, poet, and lover of poetry. He was a top grammarian, moralist, and lover of nature. His works include philosophical works like Vakyapedia. Bhartari's major work on the philosophy of language is Vakyapedia. He is the author of the linguistic theory Sfuta. According to him, the speech principle is the manifestation of the ultimate reality. He wrote the Indian classical genre known as fragmentary lyric, having rich imagery and great sensuality, having astonishing beauty and subtlety. He wrote three collections of poetry, each containing 10 verses. His poetry reflects themes such as the wisdom of the world, love, and renunciation. According to him, morality is the foundation of human life. Shringar is the beauty of life, and the final aim of life is renunciation. That is, without morality, Shringar and renunciation, human life is incomplete. His 100 verses on ethics, beauty, and renunciation provide moral education to the youth and help them in character building. In these verses, Bhartari has declared altruism, friendship, love of justice, and knowledge. He says that disease, old age, and fear led us to renunciation. The inner joy is the real joy. The worldly pleasures are short lived. His language is simple and natural, having beauty of clarity of expression. His poem, which was later on translated in English, it was originally written in Sanskrit, is of what use is the poet's poem? Of what use is the bowman's dart? Unless another sense is real, when it sticks queering in the heart. Bhartari states that the poet's poem and the bowman's arrow are useless if they fail to touch the heart of the reader. He tells us about the effect that a poem should have on us. Such effect has been compared to what happens to us when we are pierced in the heart by an arrow. This stanza of 4 lines has a universal truth. If the poet's poem and the bowman's arrow fail to touch our senses by striking in our heart, these are of no avail. Real success of a poem or arrow lies in sticking to the heart and thus affects the senses of another person. Poetry has condensed the wisdom of the world in these 4 lines. We have many difficult words in this quadrant. Dart means arrow, reel means move unsteadily, sticks means fixes or fastens, quivering means trembling or vibrating. This stanza written by Bhartari has been translated by John Burrow from Sanskrit into English. The purpose of a poet's poem is to touch the heart of the reader so that its senses reel or sway in a while. The bowman's arrow has similar aim or mission. It should move the heart by sticking to it in a vibrating manner. If the poet's poem and the bowman's arrow fail to achieve this, they are of no use. real success of a poem or arrow lies in sticking to the heart and thus sway the senses of another person. The purpose of a poem or arrow is to touch the heart and thus reel the senses of another person. Bharthari has summarized practical wisdom of the world in this quatrain. Some minor critics who are incapable of writing a line or two of a poem do not feel discouraged in the slightest manner to sit in a judgment of the abstruse poems of renowned poets. Bharthari calls such critics scoundrels. They find many poems difficult to understand. They listen very attentively and they are alert to see how many faults they can find in these poems. When they are unable to understand a poem, they do not blame their lack of intelligence but find fault as if a bad workman quarreled with the tools. Bharthari presents a practical and true observation of the ways in which some critics react to poetry in case it is beyond their understanding. Such critics try to appear wiser than they really are. They are keen on finding as many faults as possible. They feel annoyed when they are not able to understand the meaning of those works which have been conceived and written for intelligent readers. At such time, they do not blame themselves for their foolishness or lack of understanding. They put the blame on the writer, just as an ugly girl puts the blame on the dress. It means scoundrels without the wit to fit a word or two of verse together are daunted not a whit to sit in judgment on the abstruse poetry of another. Such men will listen with attentive mind, alert to see how many faults they find, and if they have vexed because they fail to grasp the sense of works conceived for readers of intelligence, they naturally do not blame their foolishness. A girl who is less than perfect always blames the dress. Here, the poet wants to say that um, when we are not able to understand something, we find fault with that. We do not blame our lack of intelligence. In the same way, when a poem is not easy to understand, critics find fault with that. Thus, we can say a bad workman always quarrels with his tools. He tells a universal truth and gives true observations of the critics who react to poetry in case it is incomprehensible or difficult to understand. He calls such critics scoundrels who themselves are incapable of writing even one or two lines. Such critics are called hair splitters because they are eager to find as many faults as possible. When they are not able to understand a piece of poetry which is written for witty readers, they feel annoyed and they do not blame themselves for their foolishness. They put the blame on the writer just as an ugly girl puts the blame on her dress instead of her looks. The rhyme scheme of the stanza is ABA, BCC, DD, EE. Um, Now, students, there is an assignment for you. You have to write the answer of this question. What does Bharthari say about the functions of poetry? Explain his views regarding false critiques. In the next class, we will discuss the remaining poem of Bharthari. Thank you.